The resignation of Defense Secretary James Mattis got a powerful response from lawmakers in Washington yesterday. Members of both parties expressed concern over Mattis' coming departure, which he announced one day after President Trump said he will pull the U.S. military out of Syria and cut in half the number of troops in Afghanistan.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he's distressed that Mattis is resigning due to sharp differences with the president. David Martin has more from the Pentagon.
Mattis delivered his letter personally to the president yesterday afternoon. In it, he says the U.S. must remain clear-eyed about countries like Russia, China, and North Korea. But his most profound disagreement with the president is over the treatment of American allies.
He and the president have a good relationship, but sometimes they disagree.
Last night, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders tried to downplay the differences between Secretary Mattis and the president, while lawmakers from both parties voiced concerns and criticism about Mattis's resignation.
Our troops look to Secretary Mattis as a leader, and now he is going to be leaving them. This is very serious for our country.
Republican Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wrote he was distressed by Mattis's departure, saying the U.S. must maintain a clear-eyed understanding of our friends and foes and recognize that nations like Russia are among the latter. From the start, President Trump was a difficult boss to work with. When he announced his travel ban on mostly Muslim countries, it was the first Mattis had heard of it. He also didn't know Mr. Trump would tweet that transgender service members would no longer be allowed to serve in uniform. The final straw was the president's decision to pull U.S. troops out of Syria.
They're coming back now. We won, and that's the way we want it.
NATO's hard power in a defensive orientation is our ticket to peace.
The fundamental disagreement was over, as Mattis put it in his letter, my views on treating allies with respect.
What we're doing with NATO, where for many years they're not paying their bills.
Mr. Trump has consistently lambasted NATO members for not spending enough on defense. Former Defense Secretary William Cohen.
For Secretary Mattis, who's never been known to quit anything, every star that he has on his shoulders was earned in the blood and the mud of battle. And that has to be taken into account when he says we are betraying our allies under these circumstances.
In the letter, Mattis says it has been a privilege to serve his country, but he does not say it has been a privilege to serve Donald Trump. He plans to step down on February 28th, and the White House says the president hopes to name a replacement by the end of this year. Anne-Marie, Nikki.
David, thank you so much. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the impact of his resignation. We're joined now by retired Navy SEAL Dave Sears. You're joining us from Washington, Dave. So listen, David, you know, in the times that I've seen Mattis speak, I was always impressed by his sort of dedication to duty and service to country. You met him, though. Give us a sense of, you know, his leadership style and his character.
He is a listener. So his whole intellectual philosophy of life really is founded in stoicism. He is very unemotional and listens and is so well read. I sat with him for hours, just one-on-one discussing some national security challenges that I was helping with. And he tuned in, was all ears listening. He wasn't dictating. So he is he's an impressive leader, and I know he's very, very well thought of as far as a battle commander, being in the field. He's a warrior and an intellectual.
Dave, in his resignation letter, Mattis said his views don't quite align with President Trump's, and the announcement came one day after the president said he wants U.S. troops out of Syria. What do you make of the timing of this news and what Mattis wrote?
I think it's directly related. I do think that they have differences, strong differences, that cause Mattis to do this on foreign policy and where we believe we should go as a country. So president is the president. General Mattis serves his foreign policy, the president's foreign policy, not his own. And when he came to a disagreement with that, he decided that that was enough. He could no longer support this. It was so contrasting to General Mattis's views that he chose to leave.
So we've also been reporting that the president is cutting the number of troops in Afghanistan in half as well. How's that news likely to be met and by those who are involved in the war, who are putting really their lives on the line?
That's two different questions. So how is it going to be met in Washington? It sounds like it's going to be met with a lot of skepticism, and, you know, people are not going to be happy, from senators on the Republican side to the Democrat side. By the troops, it's very divided, and there's a lot of people, a lot of the troops still on the ground, contractors that work over there that I talk to constantly, that what are we doing there? You know, we've been there for 18, 19 years. Think about this. There are kids that were not born yet that are going to fight in Afghanistan. That is crazy. Where have we gotten? We were at a worse place than we are now than we were in 2001. That is not a good outcome. So we need to have a serious discussion as a country, the Congress does, the Department of Defense, the National Security Council, on where are we going. If the choice is to stay there for the next 100 years, then say that, and that's what we're going to do, and here are our goals. But we've been so unclear on where we're trying to go. You know, on substance, I agree with pulling out of Afghanistan. It's the style and the execution of how you do it that matters. But should we still continue to be there? I don't believe so.
Hey, Dave, I just want to jump back to something that Nikki brought up about the resignation letter. And it was the line that really jumped out at me, this idea that the president deserves people in his cabinet, and I'm paraphrasing, who are more aligned with his beliefs. And when I read that, I thought, no, he needs people in his cabinet who will push back. And I wonder, you know, what sort of cabinet do you think we will be seeing in the future? Are you concerned that the president will surround himself, now that he's going to be replacing those 3 generals that he was so proud of having in his circle? He'll be replacing them. Are you concerned that he's going to replace them with all yes men?
That is something to watch out for. I don't know that he can get all those yes men actually passed through a confirmation. So that's still a challenge that he has. He can put people on the executive branch or in his staff that are yes men and going to answer to him, but he still has to get some of these people confirmed and through the Senate. So I think that, you know, the way the Senate sits right now, and you saw Mitch McConnell's letter and the other pieces, they're going to be taking a very hard look at who comes in as defense secretary. Should they be, you know, diametrically opposed to the president? No, they still have to have some belief in what he's doing, and hopefully they can temper some of his execution. I agree with the president on a lot of the substance and in principle and the meta level of what he's trying to do, but the style and the execution is sorely lacking at times, to say the least.
Dave Sears, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Nikki. Emery.